Welcome to the Jessica Wet Show and my series Convos with a Counselor. I'm here with Amanda Dewal from Strength Counselling Services. If anybody in Canada, are you guys Canada only?
Canada.
Yeah, if you're in Canada, it's the perfect solution to all your mental health needs. And I'm so excited to talk to you today. This is our third session.
That's right. That's right. Welcome, Jess.
Yeah.
Good to see you again. I
Good to
know
see
that
you.
you've had quite an eventful last few weeks. Now, when we chatted last time, you were about to go on a trip,
Mm-hmm.
and we had talked about you focusing on getting some tasks done that needed to be done, namely
Taxes.
taxes. And then you got a surprise, and everything changed. And we were going to talk about buying a car today, but I'm wondering if you want to talk about the last 2 weeks, what's happened. Maybe you don't. It's up to you.
Yeah, I don't really. If you're watching this, the day after that appointment, I went to Washington with my friend and then I found out I was pregnant. And so that my period was not coming soon and I was having the worst cramps and I was like, "Get me out of here." So, I had a medical abortion like a week ago and I'm finally kind of stopped done bleeding now. But I have no like a lot of people have a lot of like emotional attachment and trauma when it comes to situations like this. I'm very fortunate that I don't have any of that. It was like it's just a medical procedure to me. So there's not really much to talk about in that department, but I wasn't doing any tasks cuz I was preoccupied for the last however long. So I need to get back on track now because it's like, okay, this is dealt with. Let's move forward cuz now that that's all dealt with, I feel paralyzed again that I'm like, okay, fuck, because my taxes aren't done. Let's do taxes.
Okay. All right. So I'm happy to hear that you don't have any emotional turmoil that's following you through the procedure and the aftermath of it, and that you seem pretty stable around all of it. You'd say that's true?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. And so the taxes piece we focused on that session because you were going away and you weren't able to do the things that you normally would be able to do at home.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's top of your list right now. I think the car was top of your list. So we can shimmy on back to that topic if you like.
Yeah, well, let's go to the car one.
The car one? Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to put out there, and this may be, I'm not sure, this may be uncomfortable to talk about, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. Because I've had this like niggling little thought. Now, I'm wondering if when you set out a plan to do something or an idea to do something, if it's common that then something happens in your life that explodes in your face that makes it so you can't do the thing. Is that a common thing or is that
Well, yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because getting pregnant, I mean, that surprises a lot of people.
Uh-huh.
And that I don't know you well enough to know what your history is, if that's happened to you before or not. And that's not really super relevant right now. But the theme I'm wondering here is if we could look at just a little bit before we get to the car, is this idea that you have kind of an avalanche effect, if you will, that
Mm.
happens from decisions that you made from before, and then they catch up to you,
Yeah.
and then you can't get the thing done that you wanted to get done. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like just a revolving cycle of what my life is. Like reasons coming up that I can't do the things I need to do. Because I could
Okay.
have done my taxes within the last 2 weeks. Like there's I just I like hyper focus on the things that I guess enable me to not do the things I need to do.
Right. Right. I totally understand why you didn't get your taxes done in the last 2 weeks. That makes 100% sense to me. And I understand why you didn't get them done that week when you found out you were pregnant, right?
Yeah.
What I want to really understand is the pattern of how you make decisions when things are stable. So I want to look at the momentum of the decisions that you've made from the past that then influence whatever is in the present. Because that session that we had, you seemed to me like you were pretty stable. You were going to go on this trip. We had some plans, and you were in a good spot when we chatted, right? And then boom, out of nowhere, oh, all of a sudden you're pregnant. And I think you said to me, I accidentally got pregnant. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's this question of how do the decisions that you make on a regular basis, how are they going to affect you when you are stable and throwing your life off of filter? Right? You see what I'm saying?
No, can you explain it a little bit more?
Well, if we focus on getting the car, which we will, then that's one thing out of the way. But the core of the issue is not out of the way, and it's not solved, and it's not being worked on.
Because
Because
the
the core of
second
the issue,
because the
go
second
ahead,
something comes up, then my
right,
whole yeah.
right.
Yeah. Okay,
And
yeah,
you've
yeah.
just said this is a revolving door issue.
Yeah.
So I would be doing you a disservice if all we focus on was the car, because that's not actually the problem.
Hmm.
I mean, it is the problem because you
Yeah,
need the
yeah,
car,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's not the underlying problem. The underlying problem is that you're in chaos a lot of the time. And even when you're
Oh,
stable, there's something that's happened before that you've made a decision about
yeah.
that's now creating chaos for you when you didn't need to be in chaos,
Yeah. Yeah, I can
right?
literally think of like 20,000 situations right now.
Right. So that, my friend, I think is the problem. And let's talk about that for a few minutes, and then we'll get to the car. I promise we'll get to the car today. So I'm wondering, how do we kind of piece this together? So pregnancy is one topic. Can you give me an idea of some other things that have blown up in your face because of decisions you've made in the past when you were relatively stable and then caused your life to go into chaos? Like other examples.
Well, the first thing I thought of is like some of the relationships that I get into. Like everything is good and like while I'm in it, I'm like, "Oh, this could go bad in the future," but like I'll deal with that when
Mm-hmm.
I get there. And then when I get there, I'm like, "Why the fuck?" You knew like
Yeah.
I can remember myself
Yeah.
literally saying like, "Oh, haha, this might all fucking blow up in my face," but like
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying it now, so let me just enjoy it now. That's like yeah.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, and I'm just inquiring here, I'm not saying one way or the other, but would you say that that falls into your pattern of addiction?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, I'm really enjoying this in the moment,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'll just deal with the consequences later. I don't give
Yeah,
a shit what happens now or what's going to
for
happen
sure.
later. I'm just going to have fun with it. Yeah. So that's
Short
the addictive path.
short-term gratification for sure.
Right. Okay. And if I can be so forward, and you can tell me to fuck off or shut the hell up if you need to, if I can be so forward into asking you about what happened here where you got accidentally pregnant. Now, was this obviously it's something that wasn't intended, but were there precautions that you took, or did you think about taking the precautions? And I'll just before you answer, the reason I'm asking that is not because the answer is actually that relevant. It's the question of what can we do to help you modify your decision-making process at point A so it doesn't blow up in your face at point B or C or D,
Yeah.
right? So did you think at the time to possibly prevent this, or was it a in the moment you were like, I don't give a shit kind of thing?
No, it wasn't really an I don't give a shit thing. It was more a like I'm pretty sure I'm infertile and I'm about to get a hysterectomy, so I don't really need to worry about that. And worst case scenario, I can just get an abortion. Like that was my thought process.
I see. Okay. So you knew that you had your own solution after the fact. Okay. And I'm happy to see here that you don't have emotional turmoil around it.
Mhm.
And maybe you knew that about yourself at the
Mhm.
time. You are really self-aware. But sometimes life throws us these curveballs and we do end up having emotional reactions to them, to the outcome or the consequences. And we do suffer as a result of it.
Mm.
Right. And in this case, you weren't emotionally suffering, but you did have to, uh,
Be in pain for 3
you can't,
weeks.
you were in pain for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many appointments you canceled, but you canceled some.
Mm-hmm.
You canceled ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's fine. It's not a big deal. But when we put two and two together and we look at the whole picture, we say, this decision that you made to not take precaution because there was a solution, the
Mm-hmm.
solution was annoying in
Mm-hmm.
itself, because then you had all this 3 weeks of uncomfortability,
Yeah.
if you will. So even though it didn't come with emotional turmoil,
Yeah.
it did come with turmoil, period,
Yeah.
because you didn't take that precaution, even though you thought about it,
Yeah.
right? So paying attention to how you're making decisions and doing it differently is going to be pivotal in
Yeah.
your ability to get well and heal the things you need to heal,
Mm-hmm.
that you want to,
Yeah.
right? So this is all part of the game then. So that healing game that we've talked about is, I am encouraging you to pay attention to the decisions that you have to make in the moment. So this is really similar to what we talked about in session 1 or 2, where I said, sit down with yourself for 15 minutes and play the tape forward and decide if that's
Mm-hmm.
a healthy decision to make. And in the case of that conversation, that was session 2, we discussed
Self-talk.
binge eating,
Mm.
right? So it was the binge eating, and then you were going to do the self-talk for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And you actually did do it. You told me that I guess it was session 1. It was session 1 that we talked about that. You did it that week. And then in session 2, you told me you did it. So that's fantastic. But it doesn't have to just be binge eating. It can be everything. It can be like, oh, am I going to have sex with this person? It's like, yep, I'm going to do this. And then what's the precaution? That instead of, oh, I'll just deal with that later. Because we know that you are going to suffer afterwards. It's going to blow up in your face. This has happened 200,000 times or whatever you said, right?
Yeah.
So
we have to
actually start to interfere with that decision-making process. So there's a couple things we're interfering with already. First thing is the negative thoughts. And I'm going to ask you about that in a second. We interfere with the negative thoughts, and that may lead to you being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
It may not, but at least you're not being mean to yourself. And that's, we want to see that pattern kind of unfolding. And now we want to start interfering with how you make decisions. And now, how you make decisions, you are capable of making decisions. We've talked about that executive functioning, and I know that about you. However, you just take the easy road at the time, if that's safe to say.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Okay. So the easy road at the time is what's getting you in trouble at point B, C, or D.
Yeah.
Down the line, right? So we want to start to interfere with that. So the car, although important, and we'll get to that in a second, it's not as important as what the fallout or the avalanche effect of your decisions a month from now or however long.
Yeah.
Right? Any thoughts about that?
Pardon?
Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's all, yeah. That's exactly it. This isn't, the car situation is just one example of a billion situations in my life where it's like, I just feel paralyzed and stuck. So I'm like, I'll deal with it when I get there. And I don't really like imagine, I like know there's the future, but I never really, like, I'm like being mean to my future self. Like, she can deal with that.
Yeah. Okay. What were some decisions that you made? It's Thursday today. So what were some decisions that you made this week or in the last 7 days that you think possibly could lead you to a place where you're going to be suffering in the future?
Well, fuck, I don't know. What decisions did I make in the last week? I feel like it's probably the lack of decisions, right?
That could be it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more like just even not doing my taxes. Like I'm paying interest right now. I'm paying late fees right now. Or even like there's been times that, because I've been struggling with the eating thing ever since I got an appetite back. So there's definitely been times where I've been eating bad food, and I'm like, I know you're going to feel shitty later. And then I'm just like, I always feel shitty, whatever, fuck you, eat it. So that, I can't think of anything other than that though.
Have you sat down and had that 15-minute conversation with yourself?
Yeah, but the problem is I'm like, "Ugh, you're going through a hard time. You deserve
Oh,
it. You deserve
okay.
it."
It's like when you said first session, you said, "Well, I think I'm being nice to
Yeah,
myself by just letting myself do whatever I
indulge.
want." It's like
Mhm.
in allowing that child self to just like have whatever it wants, and at the end of the day,
Mhm.
that child is like sick because you've done that, and this is what you do to yourself
Mhm.
so much. Okay, so you had the conversation, you still chose to do the thing, then you had the consequence of feeling ill
Mhm.
after. And then did you second guess the decision you made, or were you just like, whatever, on to the next thing?
No, there's definitely, yeah. I'm thinking about it as I'm doing it. I'm like, because I've gained, um I'm back at like 150 pounds now, whereas in February I was at I'm oh my life is usually at 150 pounds, but I really got sick there for a while and I was 130, and now I'm back up at 150. So I'm like trying to be like, okay, we got to watch our weight. So I think about that when I'm eating, like, but then it's like the future self will deal with the consequences of gaining weight.
Are you okay to be 150?
Yeah, I just would like to stay here.
Right, to not overdo it. And
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Because if your set point is around 150, then and you're 150, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Right? Okay.
I'm aware right now that if I keep eating the way I'm eating, I'm not. It's going up. So I do think about that as I'm like eating the Domino's cheesy bread while being lactose intolerant.
Absolutely. And I laugh because I do it too. Right? Like I totally like I'm like, this is so good. Like this is
Mm,
so bad for
yeah,
me. And I'm like,
yeah,
that's that's fine. Like I totally get it. And then I feel terrible after. But at the same time, I think it's really important to like enjoy your life
yeah,
too.
yeah,
Right? We have to have some kind of balance where we're not like totally straight lining it on one side or the other side. Like we're like somewhere in the middle. And so
yeah.
honestly, if you're we'll talk about the car today, but at some point maybe we'll talk about the eating more in depth if you want. But at the same time, we're not sitting here talking about you using cocaine or heroin or and
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, I just had too much again.
Yeah,
We're not talking about that. Like that
yeah.
is way more risky than what you're doing to yourself right now. So we
Mm-hmm.
have to choose our battles
Yeah.
because life is full of them,
And
right? And
I
so
and I
so
also feel
I
like
think it's okay.
if I can focus on tasks more too, it would be easy for me to not just be eating out of boredom, because I would be able to like focus on something
Totally.
and like be
Yeah,
productive.
yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So from the first part of the conversation, what I encourage you to pay attention to in the coming week and kind of consistently would be what the consequences are going to be or possibly going to be of the decision that you're making now. Because I'd like you to consider telling yourself,
I
okay,
just,
if,
Amanda,
if,
I just,
go ahead, what?
I'm just thinking about how much therapy I've done in my life, and now I'm just getting to the core of like, Jessica, think before you act. Like, that's like a basic fundamental skill. It's just so frustrating to be like, what? Hello, like consequences of your actions. So it's,
Right? And I think maybe part of this is that you've had so many therapists who've been like, let's focus on your childhood and your trauma. And then they
yes.
haven't like done this with you, had this conversation, right? All I'm doing right now is I'm like holding this mirror up to Jessica saying, like, look at what you're choosing, right? Look
Yeah.
at what it's doing to you. It's like, let's pay
Mm.
attention,
Yeah.
right? So I'm glad you can laugh about that because everybody figures it out at some point in one way or another. And sometimes it's harder. And
Yeah.
at least you're having someone that can have like a fun conversation with you and you can figure it out that way and it's
Yeah.
not too painful.
And not hate myself over it. Like, that's not a
Right?
productive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the thing that I encourage you to have in your head when you're making a decision is if I choose X, am consenting to the consequence that this likely will bring or possibly could bring. So let's play it back with the pregnancy thing.
Whoa, that's freaky, girl.
Right? But isn't it true?
Whoa!
Right?
No.
You are consenting to the problem in the future. So I'm going to have sex with this person and I'm not going to use protection and I possibly could get pregnant. So I'm consenting to getting pregnant and all the trouble that that's going to cause me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you had thought about that, I wonder if you would have taken precaution.
If I would have known I was going to be in pain for 3 weeks, I fucking would have.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you might have, how do I say this? You might have considered that if you knew that would have been a possibility, right? What we want to do is we want to take all your lived experience, and you have tons of really helpful lived experience. And unfortunately for you, it's been tons of really painful lived experience, right? And I want you to learn from all of that and say, this consequence could be really negative for me. And as a result, I'm not willing to X, Y, and Z. I'll give you an example from my own life. So I used to be a big risk taker. When I didn't have children, I didn't have a wife, and I was just like this solo, free flying kind of human. And I loved cliff jumping and I loved doing things that were really scary. And so I would jump off this, I mean, I'm not talking like 30, 40-foot cliffs. I was never that brave. But I would jump off this cliff into the lake. Yeah. And it was great and it was exhilarating and I loved it. And you take a cliff that's 1/4 the size of the cliffs I used to jump off when I was in my 20s, and I will not do it. I'm like, oh, that would be super fun. And in all likelihood, it's pretty safe. But if I bust my leg or something, I have 2 kids to take care of. I have a job that I need to pay attention to, and I'm going to have trouble. And I already have trouble meeting all my responsibilities with how my life is now. And then I would add a broken leg onto it, possibly. And so I think about that. And because there's a possibility of that happening, I don't jump off the cliff. I don't even risk it. I'm like, no, that's okay. I'm going to take a step back. And that's what I'm encouraging you to pay attention to. Because you have enough lived experience at this point to know possibly what could happen if you make decision A, B, or C, or don't make the decision A, B, or C that you
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that about acid. I'm like, I love acid, but I know what can happen when it goes wrong, so I have no desire to engage in that risk.
Not going to do acid. Not going to do acid. No. Very good.
So
very good.
If only I could take that approach to every other thing.
And that's the thing. Why can't you?
Well, like, yeah, true. Oh, I guess I don't. I will try to.
You can try to.
I can try to.
Be careful because you can say, oh, I will do it, and then you won't do it, and then you feel like shit about yourself. Mm-hmm. So let's say I can do it.
Yeah.
Rather than however you want to tell yourself you can or can't do it. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say. I can do it if I choose to do it. Right? And then we're really combating this defiance too. Yeah. So that's the consideration, is if you make a decision, you say, I'm consenting to the consequence of this decision or the potential consequence. Mm-hmm. And I want to see how that goes in the next week.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're like, fuck it, I'm going to make the decision anyway. And then you come here and you say, well, I did the thing and then I had the consequence and I knew it was going to have a consequence and I did the thing anyway. I'm going to say, because you consented to it. Mm-hmm. You knew that could happen to you. And then the next question I'm going to have for you is there part of you that wants to do this to yourself for any reason? Because there might be. Right? Because we love the chaos.
Yeah.
In an addictive cycle, we love it. And so if I'm going to choose the healthier route, I'm going to be bored there. Right? What's the laugh about? Tell me about that.
No, yeah, it's 100%. I'm not conscious of that experience, but I feel like if just looking at my life that would make sense. Like people say to me all the time, "You have the most insane life ever. You don't even leave your house. Like how do you pull this shit off?" And I'm always like, "I don't know what you mean." Like they're like, "You have the and I'm always like, "What do you mean?" And then I look at their life and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I see how that
Mhm.
happens."
So it'll be really interesting because, like, I want you to know I don't care one way or the other
Of
which way you go.
course.
Like, you can continue, right? I'm totally
But it's like the
whatever you need. And
adrenaline.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
the
okay.
adrenaline of it.
Yeah, I'm going to support you regardless,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I hope you know that.
Of course, yeah.
But to get to the root of it, we want to know why you're doing this thing, even though it's hurting you, right? But we don't actually know at this point if you're going to do the thing that's going to hurt you after you've thought about the consequence and agreed to the consequence of it. You might actually change your mind and decide not to do it. So let's just play that out for the next week and see.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
But
I'm wondering
I'm not,
how I avoid turning that into punishment because sometimes I'm like you know, like I said with the food thing, I'm like I think of my future self and I'm like fuck you. You deal with that.
right. Okay.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that's some delusional ass shit right there. So anytime I'm like,
Well,
you're gonna face consequences to your action, I'm like, you deserve to suffer. You suck.
there it is, right there. You nailed it. That's what I was going to say is you think you deserve to suffer. But why?
You got me, Amanda.
Mm,
Oh, I don't know.
mm. What's happening right now?
I don't know. Is that actually what's guiding my behaviors? I'm like punishing myself and I think I need to suffer. Like what the fuck? That's fucking crazy.
Hard to know exactly what's happening, but it does seem like you're in a self-defeating cycle
Mhm.
over and over and over.
Yeah. But yeah, when I think about that, I do say that all the time when I'm thinking about the consequences of my actions. I'm like you yeah.
Okay. So let's change the narrative, or let's work on changing the narrative, which means instead of saying to yourself, you deserve, or let's even take up to deserving, say, my future self can deal with the problems. And I know there'll be suffering there and I don't care. I don't care right now.
Mhm.
Right? Just change the narrative and say, you could suffer in the future, and I don't want you to suffer.
Mhm.
So I'm going
Whoa.
to choose this other thing.
Interesting. I don't want you to suffer. That would really I think change my decision making. That's interesting.
Okay.
I never thought of it like that, Amanda, because that ties into the whole like I forget what I'm saying now, but when we first talked about changing the way I speak to myself and saying what was can you remind me of what the line was that you just said? What am I saying to myself? You don't.
I don't want you to suffer.
Oh yeah, I don't want you to suffer. If I
Mhm.
That's like the nice thing to say to the child.
Yeah. So excellent that you went to the child piece because that's where I was going to go next. Is can you imagine if you were, say you had this little child that you were responsible for, and you're like, well,
No.
I'm your parent, but I'm going to do this thing that I know that you're going to have to deal with, in a week, and I don't care. And that kid's going like, oh my God, I can't even make a decision to help myself. And you're
Mhm.
putting that kid in that position. That's what you're doing to your inner child. And you're
Mhm.
saying, I don't care. And this is why she doesn't fucking trust you.
Yeah, fuck.
Right?
I don't want you to suffer.
Yeah, you in your adult self are not a safe person for her.
Yeah, that changes the entire conversation of thinking about the consequences of my actions, because if I think about it, that is what I say to myself every time. The consequences to your actions are gonna suck, but you deserve to suffer, so we might as well do it anyway. But changing that to the consequences of your actions are gonna suck and I don't want you to suffer, I'm like, why not?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're on to something here. And this is why we didn't just talk about the car today.
Wow,
this is the core.
fuck.
Right? So it's really, we're, how do I say it? I'm not going to have any expectations of you. We've had a bit of, I don't know what you want to call it, but a bit of a aha opening right now. And you can take that and use the momentum of that for the next week and see what happens. Because we're just trying things on. And then what works, we'll move forward with, and what doesn't, we'll throw away. But for now, something's working here, even in this moment.
Yeah.
Right? Because it caught you in your core. Right? And that means something. And when something has meaning, it's going to help us project into a direction that feels better or best for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. That's all we're going to do with this piece here. We're going to just lay it to rest, and you can let that kind of percolate and decide what you want to do with it through. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That I'm gonna put this up everywhere. I don't want you to suffer. Because that's like a whole different conversation.
I love it. And what's going to happen now is if you use that over the next week, it'll start to open different doors of direction in your life. And then when we walk through that door and start talking about the topics that show up through that door, there are more doors that open in your life. And each door that we walk through is going to lead to greater healing for you and greater recovery from that addictive cycle. It's just that, they say 1 step at a time. Here's 1 step, Jessica, right here, what you did right now.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, wicked. And for whatever it's worth, I'm proud of you for setting into it, if that makes sense. You had a feeling inside, it got emotional, and you're saying, wow, this is something that fits for me. I don't want this for myself. That's huge. Some people never do that. They say, they're not worth it, and they won't even have this conversation because they have so much shame.
It's interesting too, because I had just said earlier, like, this is such a basic fundamental skill. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? But just talking about a basic fundamental skill made me have a breakthrough in understanding that I am punishing myself. And like, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. So right there, part of the work here is not judging either. Approaching your decisions and your life without judgment. Right there was the judgment. You were like, that was kind of like, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw in that movement, right? Right? And you're not an idiot. You literally just didn't know how to do it. You had to have this specific type of conversation in order to figure that out.
Yeah.
It's just like anybody figuring anything out.
Yeah.
Right? It's you just hadn't figured it out yet. Who cares? You got your whole life ahead of you to figure shit out. Right? But what's wonderful is that you figured this out today.
Yeah.
I don't care how long it took you. You still did it.
Yeah.
So can you give yourself some credit for that?
Yes. Slay therapy today.
Damn right. Okay. Now, so with the time we have left, are you open to talking about the car?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I know a little bit about the car. I know that you've done a whole bunch of research. You probably can tell me everything that I don't know about all kinds of cars. But that's not actually helpful here. What I want to know is, this might take a long time, but I want to know what's stopping you from buying a car. Let's start basic right there.
I'm like, I'm like, what I said in my head was like, I'm too stupid to do a basic task like that.
Mm. Mhm. And can you prove that to me?
No, because it's crazy.
Okay, but you feel that way. So I want to know from that core feeling of stupidity, I want to know what you have in your mindset backing it up. Even though you know cognitively you cannot prove it to me, there's something in here that pushes and pushes that you still haven't been able to buy a car in 6 months.
I don't know. I guess I just feel like I do everything wrong. But maybe like this comes down to the childhood shit of like just having my dad constantly tell me 24/7 that everything I fucking do is wrong and I can't do anything right.
And then, okay, so we have that piece. And we have the self-defeating cycle that if we could just backtrack just a little bit in this conversation, what you do to yourself and the decisions that you make when you successfully make a decision. And then you have a consequence a week, a month, 6 months later, is that same statement, is the same message, right? You're stupid and you can't make a decision right because it doesn't work out for me. Right? So I'm not certain that it's your dad's voice in your head. I think that's part of it. I think you have some trauma around that. Maybe we'll get to sometime. But that's maybe like there's an underlying foundation of that message that's been given to you, especially as you grew up and you were never good enough. And now it's your voice.
Oh yeah.
Taking your dad's voice, it's now your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then you play it out. You say, oh, I'm just going to be in the moment and I'll deal with this later. I have a solution for this and that, whatever. But then you suffer the whole time you're figuring out that solution. And then while you're suffering, you're like, see, I'm an idiot. I can't make any decisions right. So you have this self-defeating prophecy that you like put yourself in over and over and over again. So there's only part of it that part of the healing process of this is going to be what we just talked about. I don't want you to suffer. And I want to play the tape forward and accept my consequences before I follow through. And if I don't accept them, then I'm not going to follow through and do it different. That's only part of it, right? The other part is actually seeing that when you change your decision making, things can work out for the better for you, where you're not suffering, right? So you actually have no facts to tell me why you're an idiot. You're too stupid to make a decision. What you have
But I guess,
and what
yeah,
you've been showing me.
I guess that is so true because my thought is, yeah, I can look at my life.
You're it's like you're trying to prove it visually that you do a thing and it blows up in your face. But the fucked up thing about this, Jessica, is that this is all the addiction cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So you coming from this place in your childhood of like, I'm so terrible and I'm not good enough and my parents hate me and all of this. It's like, well, I might as well just enjoy what I can. And then we become addicts in that because it's so hard to face overcoming this core wound of not being good enough. So we're like, fuck it. I'm just going to get high. So when you had sex without precaution, you were just getting high.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And when you don't buy the car, I wouldn't say you're getting high enough, but you're definitely avoiding having to actually face the core wound. Mm-hmm. But when you're eating, you're just getting high. Mm-hmm. So the easiest thing is just to get high, and then this core wound gets bigger and bigger and bigger, or layers upon layers of your own voice, right? So you see how it's all cyclical.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what I was saying in session 2 is we have to bite the bullet and do it. But we want to bite the bullet and do it well. Now, your research is helpful, although too much of anything is usually not helpful.
Mm-hmm.
You've done so much research. So I'm not going to sit here and say to you, okay, Jessica, go and buy a car right now or tomorrow or anything like that. I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is, let's look at the fundamentals. And you might already have done all of this. The fundamentals of the kind of car you want. So you would start with a very basic slate. And I'm going to ask you some questions in a second. What kind of car do I want? Do I want a certain color? Do I want it to have certain characteristics? And do I want it to be a certain age? Like all these things, what kind of car? And then you would take that and then you're going to narrow it down. Now, you've been doing research for 6 months. The cars that you were looking at 6 months ago, they're gone. In fact, the cars you were looking at 2 weeks ago, they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
They've been sold. So let's start at the very core of you needing a car.
But
what kind of car do you want?
I already
all the basics.
Well, it needs to be under 100,000 kilometers, 2020
Okay.
or newer. 4-door.
Do you have all this written down?
All of it, about 1,000. I have an Excel spreadsheet with every type of car. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I already know exactly what I want. Like there's only 3 models that I'm choosing from. When I go to lots, I just look at 3 different models. It's right there. It's all done.
It's all done. It's all done. It's all right there. Okay. Can you tell me how you got to the 3 models? Because that was a decision in itself.
I can't do any better.
What do you mean?
Like, it's not what I want. It's not the decision I want to make because my budget, I only want to spend $20,000. So I have to sacrifice and settle. So the conclusion was, according to every possibility, this is the logical, rational, responsible one. And it sucks. So I stopped the researching because I know those are the only options. So I just have to accept that.
Okay. And what made you come to the price point of $20,000?
I talked with my financial advisor, and that's what she thought would be a good idea. That's also close to what I got for the car that I crashed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to have payments. I almost bought a car that was $35,000. I've gone through every single thing there is to go through.
Okay. So in that, you talked to someone to get some support, and you made a decision that's not going to cost you worse down the road.
Yeah.
You made a decision where you're not going to have car payments.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. You give yourself some credit for doing that?
Well, I didn't do it.
Sounds like you did.
Well,
How did you not do it?
Well, I just haven't, I don't have the car yet.
Fair enough. Okay. But you said everything's done. I'm really close, right? You have these 3 models, and the parameters of choosing these models are, one, that it's a $20,000 car and you're not going to have payments. That's one parameter. So if you don't buy these cars and you go back and you modify your parameters and you're like, oh, I'm going to go and have payments, even though I know it's not a good idea. That's the difference I'm talking about.
Yeah, and then I couldn't bite the bullet because I was like,
Okay, but we're close though. What you've done in building the parameters is excellent. I want to encourage you to give yourself a lot of credit for that, because some people are putting parameters out there where they're like, well, I'll just go get a bank loan and I'll be able to figure it out later.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they have this huge car payment that down the line they can't afford or whatever. People get in trouble all the time for this stuff. But it sounds to me like you're being financially responsible.
Yeah. That's the,
But
but I
but
can't.
what?
I, that sucks. I don't want to fucking do that. But I also don't want to be
You don't.
financially
Okay.
irresponsible. Like, that's why I didn't sign that deal.
Right. So when you said I don't want to fucking do that, you don't want to fucking do what? You don't want to be financially responsible, but you also don't want to be financially irresponsible?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy to spend $20,000 on a car that I don't even fucking like. But what I want, like, I want to spend $20,000 on a Porsche. Like, that's not rational.
Mm,
So it's hard for me to go and spend 20. But then meanwhile, I'll go rent cars, and I've spent thousands of dollars renting cars because it's easier for me to do that than to make the decision to drop fucking 20K.
right. So let's look back. Tell me why you want a Porsche.
Because it's sexy.
Mm.
I love
Sexy to you or to who?
to me. I've always loved like sports cars and fast cars. I like to go fast. But I think it's like in
Mhm.
a rush.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's sexy to a lot of other people too, which is part of your pattern.
Mm.
It's like if I want to look a certain way, I want to give off this certain kind of feel for people who watch me. Is that fair to say?
I don't know.
Mhm. Tell me more about that. I don't know.
I want to give up. I guess I don't know what you mean. Can you explain that more?
It looks to me like, well, with the car anyway, specifically, you might want to be like projecting to the world or to not only yourself but everywhere. Because if you drive a Porsche, people will see that and you'll feel a certain way about yourself because it's a Porsche and it's not a Volvo or something like that.
Mm.
It ties into the same thing we're already talking about of I am a piece of shit. And if I feel like a piece of shit, if I can project to the world that I'm not a piece of shit, maybe I'll feel better about myself. That's what I'm asking. Is if there's a
Mm.
correlation there.
Yeah, I don't know about that because I don't like
Okay.
I really question if my love like for the cars is because I want other people to see me in it. Because it's more like every time I walk up to the car, I'm like, you wouldn't like this car. Or, fuck yeah, I like this car. But I, I guess I'm just thinking of you saying, like, I'm trying to project a certain. Like, I don't really care about getting attention from the car. It, like,
Okay.
I guess
That's right.
it just feels like, I don't know.
Does it help? Would if you had a Porsche, would it help you to feel like you are not an idiot or that you're not as unlovable or unvaluable as a human if you had a Porsche as opposed to whatever model you're looking at?
I don't think so, but maybe.
Okay, no, let's go with your core because there's been other things that I've said where you're like, oh yeah, that hits me and you know it's right.
Yeah.
So me asking about this, that may not be accurate. The reason I'm asking about it is because I really want to suss out what the big difference is between you having a Porsche versus you having a $20,000 car, and if
Mhm.
there was anything under that. But it sounds to me
I like
from your aware. awareness. You just like it.
I
You just
like the
like the Porsche
design.
better.
I like the design of the car. I like the way the wind slides on
Fair enough.
it. I like the. Okay. Well, yeah. I feel like it's made the way it's supposed to be made. And on the $20,000 car,
Okay.
these are all the flaws that I think should be fixed
Yeah.
because I don't want to spend $20,000 when you didn't make the car right. But then I'm like, but that's what you get for 20,000. Like I do this
Okay.
with clothes. This is my problem with buying things is I'm like, it's not perfect. So how can I spend money on it when it's not done right? That's more of like how it feels for me. Like when I look at the Porsche, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
there's not a flaw in the design of this vehicle. Whereas other vehicles, I'm like,
Right.
no, it's wrong. It makes me uncomfortable.
So it's a standard of quality for you.
Yeah. And that's what I'm always like trying to research is like, it needs to be the
Okay.
best.
Okay.
And when I
So it
see the
has nothing.
flaws, it irritates me. Like it's hard for me to
Okay.
be
Okay.
accepting.
Okay. But that has nothing to do with other people, and it has nothing to do with your own sense of self-worth, is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm hearing. Beauty.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is why we have to have these conversations. And I ask these questions to
Yeah.
uncover if there's anything niggly underneath that. So that's actually really great. So you have your set of standards. Everybody does. That's fantastic. So now, if $20,000 is what you have available to you, and a Porsche is,
100,000,
I guess it
300,000.
depends, but it's $100,000 to $300,000. With the perfection of the Porsche, do you think that if it was possible, would it be worth it to drop that kind of coin on that car?
No. I don't even think I could
No.
actually buy a Porsche because I would be like, this is ridiculous.
Okay. So this is really great, actually. I love what I'm seeing here because you have your standards of perfection, which is beautiful. Like that's great. And you know what that is, and that's great. But then when I'm like, would you buy it if you could? You're like, no? Like that's stupid. Why would anybody spend that kind of money in a car? Right? So that's that executive functioning we talked about that I see right there. That's great that you have that. So okay, you want the car, but it's not economical to have the car, even if you could buy the car. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, I'm with you. I wouldn't buy that car.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was like a million over million over millionaire, I wouldn't buy that car. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not, that's like, I think that's silly.
Yeah.
And I hold no qualms to anybody who might be watching who has a Porsche. Like, power to you. You know, if you have that kind of money and that's important to you and you
Well,
fine. Like that's great.
that's my problem with clothes is like I will not spend money on clothes. I will not spend money on designer clothes. That's delusional to me. But the like I had a friend, for example, it took me 3 years to buy a coat. And because it had to be perfect and have all these details, and I'm like so detail oriented, and I was describing to her the perfect coat, and she was like, that's Versace fall 2020 whatever the fuck. She's like, that coat exists. That's a $7,000 coat. The only way you're
Oh
gonna
my
get that
gosh.
coat is if you spend $7,000. So I guess it's like, yeah, I don't care about spending money on that stuff either, but it's unrealistic of me to expect to have all those details of perfection and quality and not to have to pay for it.
It is. It is. So you have your executive functioning saying like, I am not going to buy a car that ridiculous, even though I love to look at it and I would love to own that. I'm also not going to spend $7,000 on a coat because that's just whatever word you want to use. Like that's
Insane,
just
yeah.
there. It's out there. Um and so what's the remedy then to this situation? I'm hearing like you've done all the research, you have the 20,000, you can get the car, but you don't want that car, you want the Porsche. Okay, you can't have the Porsche. So what's the remedy here? How can I support you and help you into being okay with not having perfection?
I have no idea. I have literally no clue.
Mm-hmm. Because I can look at, you know, a car that I think is totally beautiful and say, wow, I'd really like to have that car and enjoy in that moment looking at that car. But what we know as well, a lot of therapists know this, is that when you get the car, it actually doesn't feel anything for very long. You have a temporary high
Mm-hmm.
because it's cool and it's your favorite thing or whatever it is. And then people commonly return to their standard level of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
If
Totally.
people who win the lottery
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. So having the car is really about filling the addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's great to have things that you love and things that you think are perfect or whatever. But we need to practice being okay with
Not getting
boring.
high. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
And the thing,
yeah. Yeah, that's what
that's the
that is.
key
I'm gonna
here.
spend 20 fucking $1,000 and I'm not even gonna get a rush off of it. What the hell? What the
Yeah,
hell is
right? Yeah. Now, if you like, I think that all things in moderation, but if you wanted to like go for a spin in a Porsche, guess what? Go and rent one. Whatever. Right? Go and rent one. Because the reality is just go and have fun and whatever, and then go back to your regular life and then go and have fun again at some point. But the truth is, having that car is not going to make you any happier
Mm-hmm.
than you are right now. It's not going to make you any happier than your base level of happiness after you buy your Volvo,
Mm-hmm.
whatever brand you're going to get, which doesn't matter, right? It's not going to change it. So really, the Porsche versus the $20,000 car, this is about addiction,
Mm. Yeah,
not being able to make this decision.
yeah, that really does hit home. Yeah, because if I'm gonna blow like I keep saying like that, if I'm gonna blow cash, like I
Mm-hmm.
want to recklessly spend it, not
Mm-hmm.
buy a car. Like let's go on vacation.
Uh-huh. But what's beautiful about you, Jess, is that you're not doing it. You, although you are an addiction in a lot of ways, you're not going out and buying a Porsche, and you don't have the money to do that. Because people can finance it, and a lot of people do go and buy the Porsche when they can't afford it. You're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I give you tons of credit for that. Like huge credit. Because this is we want to see more of this for you to get well in the way you want to. So if this is about addiction, then I'm careful to say, let's just go buy a car. Because you're not going to, because we have that defiance factor, right? What
Yeah.
I'm going to propose to you is that we can buy the car together. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that's the process of buying the car. I can go with you anywhere on your devices and like,
Mm-hmm.
if you wanted
Oh,
me to go
that
with
would be
you,
interesting.
right? And I could be out there and like visible to the car dealership or whatever. I don't know if you're buying it online or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
I could do that, or I could just be in your earbud in your pocket. So it's
Mm.
secret. So I'm just there and I'm just listening to whatever and I'm saying stuff to you. Now that's one option. That would be exposure therapy.
Mm-hmm.
We're exposing you to something that you don't want to do and you have support in your ear while you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a total fucking meltdown. Who knows, right? But the point is that you're not going to walk out of there without having learned something or without a car.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an offer. I'm just going to put it out there. Take it or leave it. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But I think if we're combating addiction, I want to encourage you to buy the car, and I want to encourage you to do that in such a way where you actually bite the bullet. Because if you do that, we're going to have tons more to work with in our other sessions.
Mm-hmm.
We have lots to work with, but if you want to actually get this done,
Yeah.
you're going to have to bite it.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Do you plan on buying the car in person somewhere or online or
In
people do
person. I gotta go
it
in.
in person?
I gotta make sure the car
Okay.
looks like how it looks on the internet, and then I gotta
Yep.
book an appointment to get a secondary inspection, and then I have to
Okay.
argue with men about money,
Yep.
and then I
Mhm.
sign the paper.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay.
Hey, I did get a good rush out of that when I almost signed that car for that Stinger. It was a nice afternoon of the dealership guy going, so what kind of negotiations do you do at work? And I was like, my job has been studying how to negotiate with you for the last 6 months, buddy. Like, there's no negotiations at work.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So it's a bit of a process, and we're going to have to check out in a minute here. But what we could do is I could ask you to, you'll have to do some of this on your own because
Mm-hmm.
it might take a whole afternoon. It might take 6 hours. Like we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be there when you've chosen the model,
Mm-hmm.
the actual car, when you've chosen the actual car. And then I could be there in the test drive when you're driving around and you're having some thoughts about it because you're like, I don't fucking want to do this. And then I can be there to
Yeah,
have that conversation with you.
yeah. What I say the whole time is, I don't know. I don't know. I can't make decisions. I don't know.
Yeah. And that's just a cop out because you can't make decisions. Right. So the key is you go and find those three cars. I don't know if they already exist, if you're looking at actual cars where you just have three models in mind, but I would encourage you to go and find the car. So go and drive the three models and then weigh your pros and cons. And then the car that you find, I can come with you to the purchase of that car.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll help you to follow
Follow
through
through.
yeah, because I'm here to also help you with stepping away from addiction.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've joked about being bored, but the reality is that there is so much beauty in boredom. There's so much beauty and fulfillment in your life that you have no idea is there because you're constantly seeking a fix or a high somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And so that fix and high over here is so exciting. And over here, you're just bored, but you're missing out on all the life that is actually over here in the boredom. And then the boredom ceases to be boredom once you tap into how beautiful it is because you're not suffering anymore. Like we all have suffering to some degree, but it's not what it is when we're in addiction.
That was beautiful, Amanda.
So, oh, thanks.
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm going to just put that on the table. The idea in the next week would be for you to go and test drive some cars and pick one
Mm-hmm.
and then tell me when you're going to go buy it because then I'll be there to help you finish the deal.
Okay. Cool. I'm excited.
Could be fun,
Yeah.
right? And the thing too, I'm not here to pressure you. I don't care if you buy the car or not. I've never put expectations on you. But if I'm there and you still choose to walk away, that's okay. But remember, you're choosing to walk away. You are accepting the consequences of not having a car and wasting, if I might add,
Mm-hmm.
thousands and thousands of dollars on renting cars
Mm-hmm.
that you don't even like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. I'm excited. I've never done exposure therapy before.
Mm-hmm. And it's just like having a support person there so you don't feel so alone in making the decision by yourself. Like I'm not going to make the decision for you, but I'm going to say this is going really well or this is not going really well. I'm just going to pull the mirror up and say the things to you from a different perspective that you may already be saying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're having trouble and you're feeling frozen or stuck, I will help to move you through that stuckness.
Yeah.
And it might work and it might not work. Honestly, sometimes exposure therapy takes people many sessions, but I say we give it a try. We try things on for size. If they fit, we keep them. If they don't, we throw them. But we're not going to know unless we try it.
Yeah. Cool.
Right? So it's up to you though. You're going to have to find the car
Yeah.
first. Unless you want my help in, we can spread this out even longer if you want, where
No,
I go for the first test drive with you.
no.
And then
We can
the
get
next
this
session,
done.
we can get this done.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. You can go whatever speed you want.
Yeah.
So the goal is test drive the 3 cars
Mm-hmm.
and then tell me which one you like the most and tell me why. So send me an email or a text and just say, this is the car out of the 3 cars. This is the car I like the most. And this is why. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, great. And then we'll book our session for when you're going to go in
Okay.
and buy the car.
Okay.
And we'll do it together. Now, you'll have to figure out how you're going to record it and all of that if you want to do that.
Yep.
Or you just don't record that session. It doesn't matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
But
Cool.
you're clever, so I'm sure you'll figure something out.
Yeah. I'm excited. This is really good.
Okay, excellent. And remember, no pressure, because your brain might start to kind of spin on itself and be like, oh no, now I have to buy the car. You don't have to buy the car.
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
But
I'm going to go with you because you have been like suffering for 6 months now in your brain saying, I'm not good enough to buy a car. And then every time you don't buy the car, you reinforce this idea that you are not good enough and that you are stupid. And so if we buy the car, guess what? There's no reinforcement about you being stupid anymore. It's not even about the car. It's about how you feel about yourself. Yeah. So let's buy the car so you can say, I don't want you to suffer anymore. So I'm going to buy the car. You need a car. I'm going to take care of you. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. So that's where we should close up today. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering what you're taking away from the session today.
I don't want you to suffer because we're consenting to these consequences. I think that really like changes everything about my whole life. That change of self-talk of you deserve it.
Excellent. And now that we know that, we just have to practice it. It's not going to come just like this easy all the time. You practice it. And eventually then it becomes second nature.
Yeah. Amazing.
Or we just do it.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. I'm super excited.
Good. All right. So we won't rebook. I'm going to wait for you to tell me.
Okay.
When we're going to meet to go in, but you're going to have to know which one you're going to buy first.
Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can also, if you want, like I do have 2 kids and I have to take care of and stuff like that. But if say you go and drive 2 of them and you say, oh, I'm going to go drive the 3rd one today at 3, this time works really well for me. So if you say I'm going to go
3
and drive the 3rd one at 3, can you meet with me just in case I buy this one? Because I didn't really like the other ones.
Okay.
You can always give me a few hours notice.
Okay.
And say, hey, can you meet up with me?
Okay.
And basically, I will always be able to meet up at 3 because my kid was sleeping.
Okay. Perfect.
So,
perfect.
Right, and I'm home and stuff, so I'll do my best unless I'm out, but I likely won't be, or if I have visitors or things. But so just do your best to give me some notice. I think that we should put maybe a timeline on it because if we don't do that, you might let it go a long time.
What is today? Thursday?
Today's Thursday.
Yeah.
I vote that next Thursday at this time is when you buy the car.
I was gonna say Monday, but
Monday. Oh, okay. Well, if you think you can put that kind of pressure on yourself and be okay with it, that's fine with me.
But yeah, the only thing that takes time is getting it in for a secondary inspection. So that's kind of what like determines the timeline, kind of. But I could call around in advance and find out what pre-purchase inspections are able to get people in the soonest.
And
Call backs.
you could even book that in, because so what we could do is you could drive all three and then get the inspection on the one that you chose.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the results come back from the
Yeah.
inspection, that's when you buy the car.
Yeah, I'll let
And
you.
that's when I'm going to meet up with you.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I'm getting an inspection on one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a chance you wouldn't?
Or when, I mean.
Yes. So you're definitely going to.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
my personal opinion is I think that is very important.
Yeah.
That inspection done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's shoot for meeting Thursday next week
Okay.
at this time. And then do your pre-calling in and even schedule it, whatever that maybe we'll put a fire under your butt to go and drive them and all of that. So you have to do this. Careful to say you have to, but this work is yours to do. You can do this before I'm able to come in.
Okay.
So next Thursday is my limit.
Yeah.
That I would say is my, careful to say that because I don't want to trigger this defiance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I say my limit, I'm meaning a week is a good time limit for all the work you've already done.
Yeah.
To bite the bullet.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
But yeah, I think too, like I'm capable of doing it in a week. It's a reasonable timeline to do it in a week. Yeah.
Good. So I'll plan for a week today, 3:00.
Okay.
And maybe you can let me know like through the week kind of what's happening. So we have an idea. And if we need to move it, like that's okay too. Like even on weekends, a weekend at 3:00 with my kids sleeping at 3:00 every day.
Okay.
So
yeah.
But why don't you just figure it out and then you let me know what you think and that'll be our next session. If you want it to be. If you change your mind, Jessica, and you want to focus on something else, that's fine. We'll do that too. You just let me know.
No, I think this would be really good. I'm really excited.
Awesome. Very good. Well, great work today. We had some ahas today, which was super, super awesome. And there were also some things I asked about that were not ahas. They're like, no, I don't think that's accurate. And that's great to know too, because it helps me to get to know you more and figure out what's next and what other questions I'm going to ask. So yeah, I think we have a really lovely working relationship where we're moving forward step by step. And I think you're doing a great job.
Yay. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, okay. You're welcome. Cool. Okay, well, I'll wait for your text then, and we'll go from there.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye.